I'm Michael Hitchborn, and you're watching the American Life League Report. The world around us is filled with propaganda, and that makes it difficult to know the difference between fact and fiction, which is why it's so important to point out half-truths and outright lies, like the one in the video against personhood that we are about to expose. The video, which was produced by a pro-abortion organization speciously calling itself the National Advocates for Pregnant Women, presents 4 loosely related incidents intended to make personhood to be some kind of a disaster. But in researching each case, we found that this filmmaker has no compunction about twisting the truth.
Amber Marlowe went to deliver her 7th wanted child at a Pennsylvania hospital. The doctor assigned to her decided that her baby was too big and that she needed cesarean surgery. The hospital, relying on the argument that fetuses have legal rights separate from those of the pregnant woman, got a court order giving it custody of the fetus before, during, and after delivery, and the right to force Ms. Marlowe to undergo major surgery without her consent. While in active labor, Amber Marlowe fled to another hospital.
Fled the hospital? Not quite. According to CBS News, after arguing with the doctors, Amber simply checked herself out and went to deliver the baby somewhere else. If for some reason Amber returned to the hospital, administrators were afraid of her getting caught up in another heated debate over how to deliver the baby. This could lead to legal issues if anything went wrong during an argument, so the hospital found a legal way to perform the surgery if she came back. Based on these facts, the rights of the preborn baby have absolutely nothing to do with this and everything to do with hospitals fearing a lawsuit. Incidentally, Amber didn't even know about the hospital's actions until after her husband was contacted by a reporter.
27 years old and 25 weeks pregnant, Angela Carter became critically ill.
Hold on a minute. She didn't just become critically ill. She'd been battling cancer her entire adult life and found that it was terminal once she became pregnant.
She, her parents, her husband, and her attending physicians all agreed to carry out her wishes and to keep her alive for as long as possible.
Okay, the filmmaker is about to leave out a very important fact. Angela wanted to remain alive as long as possible. Why? To give the baby the best chance of survival.
Nevertheless, the hospital called an emergency hearing to determine the rights of the fetus. The court held that fetal rights outweighed Angela Carter's right to life.
Now that is simply untrue. Angela was given 2 days to live. There was some debate as to whether she should undergo a C-section or not in order to save the baby's life, but let me be clear. Angela was dying at this point and wanted what was best for the baby. Every decision made by the doctors were in direct line with her wish. Unfortunately, the baby died, and 2 days later, as doctors predicted, Angela did too.
In Florida, Laura Pemberton wanted to have a VBAC, vaginal birth, after having had previous cesarean surgery. Like many women in the United States, she found that local hospitals would not provide her care unless she agreed to a planned cesarean. She didn't want to undergo another dangerous surgery if she didn't need to.
Wait a second. According to the court brief, the previous C-section incision was vertical instead of horizontal and extended well beyond the normal limits. The nature of this kind of incision presented a greater risk to uterine rupture, so naturally, doctors were extremely cautious.
So she stayed home to have her baby. When she was in active labor, she heard a knock on the door. It was the state's attorney and a sheriff. They had her taken into custody. Her legs were strapped down and she was taken to a hospital where she was forced to have cesarean surgery.
And here's what the video left out. Laura actually went to the hospital earlier that day to get an IV. It turns out that while she was at home and in labor, she became dehydrated. But when she got to the hospital, the doctors said she needed a C-section, which she adamantly refused, and during the course of deliberation, she left. This action posed an extremely serious situation for the hospital because they could be held liable if Laura or the baby were injured or died because she was not discharged. Technically, she was still a patient of the hospital, and again, hospitals fear a lawsuit.
When this woman, who vehemently opposes abortion, argued that her right to informed medical decision-making, bodily integrity, due process, and liberty had been violated, she was told that fetal rights outweighed hers.
All right, hold up. This is ridiculous. Was Laura Pemberton told that fetal rights outweighed hers? Yeah, she was. What was the basis for that claim? For the answer, we went to the decision of the court. Page 5 of Pemberton v. Tallahassee Memorial Regional Medical says, the court concluded that by the point of viability, the state's interest in preserving the life of the fetus outweighs the mother's own constitutional interest in determining whether she will bear a child. Gee, that language sounds awfully familiar. Maybe it's because it comes from Roe versus Wade. Is Roe v. Wade now some kind of personhood legislation? Is that what this video is trying to tell us? Come on, give me a break.
In Utah, another woman gave birth to twins, one of whom was stillborn. She was arrested on murder charges based on the claim that by refusing a cesarean section 2 weeks earlier, she was responsible for the stillbirth.
Look, Melissa Rowland consented to the C-section, so that's irrelevant. There's a lot more to the story, but the filmmakers aren't going to tell you because, gee, that would totally destroy the point they're trying to make, wouldn't it? 2 weeks prior to delivery, she adamantly refused to have a C-section, saying that she didn't care if her babies lived or died. She wasn't going to be cut like that. Then, on the day of the delivery, doctors tried to convince her to have a C-section, but she kept going outside to smoke cigarettes. She finally consented, but unfortunately her son was stillborn and her daughter was in a seriously weakened state. When doctors ran blood tests, guess what they found in the baby's system? Alcohol and cocaine. Now get this, Rowland insisted that the only way that the cocaine could have gotten into her system is if the marijuana she was smoking had been laced with it. Gee, I wonder why the filmmakers decided to leave out those little details. That's the nature of propaganda. Tell a story loosely related to the problem, leave out any inconvenient truths, and conclude that something terrible will happen if this isn't done or that isn't stopped. The truth? None of these individual cases involved any sort of personhood statute, and one of them actually wound up citing the exact opposite. In fact, the filmmakers did not present a single case from a time when all 50 states recognized abortion as the criminal act of murder. And as new personhood laws are presented throughout the country, this piece of propaganda is once again making the rounds. The bottom line is this: human personhood does not tip justice one way or the other, but extends equality to all persons regardless of state in life or stage of development. Rather than elevating the rights of some above others, as abortion laws do, human personhood legislation is all about equality. It is the recognition of people for who and what they are, human beings whose lives have meaning and dignity. For American Life League, I'm Michael Hitchborn.